Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Victory Green Hour as the Philadelphia Eagles, in an annoyingly pathetic but awesome game, defeat the Los Angeles Rams 33-26 and come from behind fashion to improve to 3-0, dropping the Rams to 2-1. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, I don't know what things were like wherever you were watching the game, but there were a bunch of words that came out of my mouth that I didn't want to come out of my mouth. I got a little superstitious, which I'll touch base upon a little bit later. But yeah, the Eagles were able to somehow, some way come away with that with the victory over the Rams.
Well, at the end of the game, the final about 3 minutes of the game, I ended up
Looks like Connor might be frozen. Oh no. Well, yeah. So the Eagles defeated the Rams 33-26 in a wild fashion. Just unbelievable game from Jordan Davis as he was all over the defensive front for the Eagles and helping clinch the victory with the game-saving field goal block against the Rams, and then returning it for a touchdown, something that he would not have been able to do last year. He would not have been able to do that last year. He admitted he probably wouldn't have been able to do that last year, but all the work on the Peloton, losing 35, 40 pounds, all his hard work this offseason has paid off. Before I jump any further into this, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter when he comes back at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRaw54. And follow the Eagles Pin Pull Network at Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pin Pull Network. And if you're tuning in live, let us know your thoughts on the game. What were you doing? Did you watch the whole game? Did you turn it off? Did you change up something during the game? I did for certain. When Connor comes back, I will share what I did. I don't know about you guys, but it was such a frustrating first half. It was a tale of two halves. Obviously, it was the same old from the first 2 weeks of the season. In the first half, running in the stack boxes, Jalen really not letting it go. Don't know if that was a Jalen thing, if that was a Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni thing. But it was so frustrating in the first half. The first drive, getting the interception by Zach Baun, going down the field, being able to score the touchdown, and going up 7-0. And then after that, it was like the offense was lifeless. They had -1 passing yards in the first half, which is it's becoming too rare of an occasion, or it's becoming too consistent of an occasion for Jalen Hurts to not have any yards at the half. And it shouldn't be like that. With the amount of talent that we have on the offensive side of the ball, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, Jahan Dotson, John Mechie, all the weapons that we have on the offensive side of the ball, Jalen should not be having negative 1 yard passing in a half. But that first half was just super frustrating. Everything that the Rams wanted to do after the Zach Baun interception, they were able to do. And the Eagles offense, when Lane Johnson went out, I was like, we already know how things are when Lane Johnson's out. And then they put Matt Pryor in, which we all saw how that went. Hey, Connor, welcome back. I was calling for anything else. And it took them long enough. I get it. Fred Johnson has primarily been working on the left side, but last year when he was here for a couple of years, he was the swing tackle. And I know he wasn't here during camp, but offense probably hasn't changed that much. And when it's easy to just tell an offensive lineman, block the person in front of you. That's all we need you to do. And when Fred Johnson went into the game, the offense started turning around. That was in the third quarter, after Matt Pryor gave up that big sack that looked like it was almost going to get Jalen Hurts killed by Jared Verse, where he fumbled it, the first turnover of the season for the Eagles, where Jalen fumbled it. The Rams got it. play or two later, Kyron Williams touchdown reception from Matt Stafford, 26-7, and we're all thinking, let's just make this respectable. What were your thoughts on that first half, Connor, when the Eagles were down 19-7 at the half and they just couldn't do anything offensively?
Yeah, sorry about that. My internet chose a wonderful time to die out, as it always does. I was so annoyed at the half. Like you said, I was annoyed that Matt Pryor continued to be marched out there and continued to be given the opportunity. He could not do anything, and it was completely flatlining. Well, I mean, I was going to say flatlining the momentum of the offense, but there wasn't really much momentum for the offense in the first place. But it was totally taking whatever life there was in the offense and just completely killing it. And I'm glad that we saw Fred Johnson out there. Fred Johnson got an opportunity to show he can still be a very, very effective swing tackle. You brought him back for a reason, because the people that you wanted to take a look at potentially being a swing tackle in the preseason and in training camp just didn't work out for you. So you brought him back, and it was at a steal of a deal. And I mean, I bet the Jaguars were watching that and kicking themselves in the butt watching Fred Johnson do what he was able to do. There's always room, I find, on a roster for a swing tackle who is as effective as Fred Johnson is, because he came in and he saved the offense. I mean, I feel like, did they alter how the plays were being called in the second half? Absolutely. But do I think Fred Johnson was a massive swing of the pendulum in the right direction? Definitely, because when Jalen Hurts can feel comfortable and confident with the five guys in front of him, he becomes a much better football player, a much better quarterback. And we saw the difference in his confidence with Matt Pryor out there and with Fred Johnson out there. But the first half, I agree with you. There is no reason in a million years, when you have the names AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, that you end up in a negative passing yard situation. As a whole, it was just a bad half, and it was just my gut was just saying Kevin Petula cannot figure this out. He just cannot figure this out. I was partially blaming Matt Pryor, but I was also partially blaming Petula and saying, are we really going to do this again and again and again? Just PTSD from 2023 and Brian Johnson was just going through my head at the time.
Yeah, and it just seemed like Petula was in over his head, and he wasn't going to be able to figure out running the same thing, because being very predictable with the formations, and the Rams just were like, oh, we'll stack the box because we know that doesn't matter. You're not going to change out of it. You're just going to run right into it. And there's no reason for Saquon Barkley for the season to be averaging 3.3 yards per carry or whatever it is. He's got to get better, but the offensive line also has to get better. The play calling also has to get better. And I think the passing game will help. And you could see that in the second half when the Eagles finally started throwing the ball all over the field. It forces the defense to kind of back out, and that opened up some lanes for Barkley. Now he didn't get a big one like he did 4 times against the Rams last year, but he still had a couple of runs that were able to make for short second, third down attempts. Also, I'm surprised that I could have swore that the first push-tush attempt, there was going to be a tush-push attempt, that there was going to be a flag, and there was no flags on the Eagles on the tush-push, shockingly. And, of course, people were like, well, look, they false started again. If you slow it down to the slowest possible. Well, the refs aren't watching this through the slow-mo camera. So, get over it. Learn how to block it, or learn how to stop it, and learn how to run it also, because it's not just the Eagles that are allowed to run the play. Everybody in the league can run the play. They also, Jalen also scored a touchdown on that third down. They shouldn't have even had to go for it on fourth down, just saying. So that's if you want to talk about refs missing stuff, there's one right there. And I know, oh wait, was that the Chiefs game? Oh, never mind. I'm getting all my tush pushes mixed up. So I had posed the question. I put it out if anybody was in the chat did this. Did you change something up going into the second half? I'm sort of superstitious in my end. I did do something, but I wanted to ask you first. Did you change something up? Whether it be where you were sitting, what you were drinking, what you were eating, how Was there what you were wearing? Was there something you did, or did you just do the same? Were you cope? Everything was the same throughout the entire game, and the Eagles just did the comeback.
For most of the first half, I was put in furniture, summer furniture, away for some family. And then the second half started, and I was sitting and I was actually paying attention to the game. So, not a superstitious thing, but the irony that as soon as I sit down, the game starts to turn around. I mean, but what did you do for a
Well,
superstitious
so
thing?
so the first half in that first drive, I was sitting on the couch, had the dog there and whatever, and for some reason I got up. I don't know if it was to just grab a drink or something to eat or use the bathroom, or whatever. And I was standing behind the couch. The Eagles scored a touchdown. I was like, all right, we scored a touchdown. Awesome. We got the passing game going. And then I still stood up, and then we got a 3-and-out or whatever. We got the ball back, and then we scored again. So I was like, all right, well, I can't move now. So for the rest of the second half, I stood behind the couch, literally standing up the entire time. And I'm usually the channel changer person, where on commercials I'll change it to red zone or something. So I had to have somebody pass me the channel. I wasn't moving from the spot, so I had somebody pass me the remote control. I had somebody pass me my drink. Like, I wasn't risking it. So I literally stood, and like the dog was sitting on the couch right in front of me. And every time I was screaming, she would look up at me like I was crazy, which is funny. And then, but yeah, I literally, and so now it's, I'm going to be able to sit on the couch to start games, but if things get bad, I have to stand in that same spot that I was standing in this past Sunday. And I did something back in the Miracle at the Meadowlands when Deshaun took the punt return back when Eagles were down 21 points in the fourth quarter with like 8 minutes to go. I think in the third quarter I changed jerseys. I forget what jersey I was wearing, but I changed jerseys. And my brother, who's a Cowboys fan because he's an idiot, he was like, "That's not going to work. It's not going to matter." And the Eagles came back. So I actually I'm not the most superstitious person, but if it's going to help the Eagles win, I am going to do everything I can to get the outcome that we want. So if I have to be superstitious, if I have to wear a certain jersey, stand in a certain spot, drink a certain thing, I'm going to do it. I'm definitely going to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, my daughter, who was born back in November, finally has 3 different Eagles outfits that fit her, and she has worn the same one all 3 weeks this year. So you can bet that every week until they lose, if they lose, she will be in that outfit. You can damn all guarantee. So I mean, you can call that a superstition too, but you got to do what's working and what seems to be working. Even if superstitions are weird to people, I mean, wins are wins. We're not giving them back, and weird superstitions because of wins or weird superstitions we're not giving back until we need to either. So
yeah, and there was all this talk about how the season, the schedule, going back kind of to the topic at hand. The schedule was hard, and I always said just stack wins. It doesn't matter how it's done. And the one thing I liked is after Jalen threw the touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert, the emotion that he showed, looking over at the sideline, pretty much saying, "This is what I do. Like, I got this." So what do you think happened at halftime or whatever? Do you think Petula kind of just simplified things? Do you think that obviously Sirianni's never going to admit that Kevin Petula didn't call plays? He's never going to admit that, even if it was true. But do you think that there was a change there in terms of they did go up tempo, so Jalen kind of just has control of it? When you go up tempo, you want to go quick, so you're really not going to sit there and listen to what the coach is saying. I want to get this play off. Let's go. Let's keep the defense guessing. Do you think that Sirianni might have had more of a hand into it? Petula simplified things, or Jalen kind of just took more control of the offense?
I want to say that Jalen said something. I don't know who it was to specifically, but it was either to Petula or to Sirianni. This is my thought, is that at halftime he went to one of the two of them and he said, "We need to do something different. Something has to change," because we know, while he is not someone who necessarily talks a ton or shows a lot of emotion, I feel like the point you made there, the fact that there was emotion in that touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert and things were starting to get right and he showed emotion, to me spoke to he said something. There was something passionate in him that he took to either Sirianni or Petula, whoever ends up being the one. Like if he takes it to Sirianni and Sirianni goes to Petula and says, "Okay, we got to change something," or he goes directly to Petula and says, "All right, this is enough. This is 2.5 games where we've literally been doing shit on offense. It's time to change. Let's do this." I don't know who he went to or who he said it to, but I definitely think it was Jalen Hurts. I don't know if it'll ever come out. I hope it comes out because there's no way they went into that locker room at the half and absolutely nothing was said and it looked like a completely different offense than what we had seen play the 10 quarters before that. Something was said. I think it was Jalen Hurts that said it because Jalen Hurts was probably tired of this lethargic offense that was not able to do, that wasn't capable of doing anything. And he would be the one, I think. I mean, AJ Brown has said enough without saying, without creating drama, that there's some things that needed to change, but he doesn't strike me as the type that's going up to Petula or Sirianni. It feels like it's Hurts who would have had to have been the one to go up and be like, we got to right this ship, or some other veteran maybe along the offensive line. But this felt like Hurts. The way, just based on the touchdown pass and the way that he reacted and showed emotion that we never see, it spoke to me in that way.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Jalen always saw, like, if you remember, I don't know if you saw the America's Game documentary for the Eagles. Jalen said that he went in at halftime of the Super Bowl. He went into the locker room and I kind of gave Sirianni a list of plays that he wanted to run, and the dagger was on that. So it wouldn't shock me if Jalen did go in there and was like, "Look, we need to open it up. These are plays that I'm really comfortable with. I know we can get going, and so I want to run these." So yes, but another question is, why did it take so long? Why couldn't this be something we did against Dallas or do against the Chiefs, or do in the first half against the Rams? Why did it take to being down 19 points for them to be like, maybe we should throw the ball. Maybe we should utilize, a top 3 receiver in the NFL and one of the best players on our team. Why did it take so long?
Part of me wonders if it's Jalen Hurts has had so many offensive coordinators in his time, as we know. I'm wondering if Jalen Hurts wanted to give Petula time to try and get his feet under him, and hopefully he was going to start to see some adjustments and some change without having to say anything to Petula, to let him build up his confidence as a play caller. And eventually it just became too much. Personally, after the first game of the season, it felt like too much to me. And then when we went a full second game in a very similar scenario, that was like, you have to be talking to him at the end of that game and saying, we got to change something up. Here's the plays that I'm confident in. We got to just flip the page away from the first page of plays that you love to call, move it to the rest of this playbook, and let's figure it out. That's just what I think. Jalen Hurts strikes me as the type who respects the play callers he has. He's been through enough of them that he knows there's going to be some bumps in the road, and he's kind of he's fairly soft spoken for the most part from what we can see in how he handles himself. So that's the only thing that really strikes me as being the reason why he might not have said something and why he let things go on as long as he did. And then when he heard the boos raining down from the stands, he's like, listen, like we've won they're like 16-1 in the last 17 games that he's started and finished. He's like,
19-1.
19, like, I don't want to start losing ground. We got to keep winning games. We got to keep the fans in it. I feel like maybe he felt the emotions of the fans, and that's what pushed him and compelled him to say something and do something at halftime, which he wasn't compelled necessarily to do over the first couple of weeks.
I don't know. I still think that. So I don't know. I really don't know if Petula was calling plays. I don't know. I'm still of the belief that he wasn't. He was still involved in the play calling, but it wasn't his decision. If that makes any sense. That's where I am. But I'm hoping that they learn something about the quarterback, about the offense, about the team. That look, something that Jalen and AJ both said after the game was like, we got to stop playing scared. Pretty much, we can't go out there and be like, look, we're gonna lose if we turn the ball over. We know that the Eagles are, one of the best teams at not turning the ball over, and that's why they just win so much. But sometimes you have to take chances. And when you have receivers of the talent that you have in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, utilize that. Don't you're wasting talent. And you saw when AJ Brown got the ball in his hands how dominant he was, catching the ball with his hands, running through Williams, running through Forbes. Like he was not going to go down like with just one person. It was going to take a gang tackle, a gang of Rams to bring him down. That's pretty much what it was, using his size, speed, strength. So like you utilize that going forward. Don't wait until you're in a dire situation, like you're down 3 scores, to be like, hey, maybe we should try this and see what happens. No, do it from the beginning, and maybe we can be like 2020, was it 2022, when we would get out the big scores in the first half, and then you just chill, like pretty much put backups in, run the ball, whatever. That's what the Eagles were great at in 2022. Let's start getting these big scores and big leads so that you're not giving heart attacks to your fans. Because I think I had like 3 heart attacks on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. So something that stood out to me was week 1, AJ Brown definitely did not look right. You could tell by the way he was running routes. But week 3, like he is definitely 100% now. We're extremely close, bordering on 100%. The way he played on Sunday looked like the dominant AJ Brown that we know, that we love, the one who we traded for a reason. We've given 2 contracts for a reason, and he looked so good, and it was so good to see. It was such a breath of fresh air to see AJ Brown do that. And I agree with you. We're not people who need to be left to have heart attacks. And I don't think that anybody on the Philadelphia Eagles sideline wants to be going through that either, when they know that they can be so much better than that they don't want to be the team playing from behind. They want to be the team that's up 19 and put in their faith in the defense to stop them and the offense being able to just run the clock down. You made some really good points there, and especially to me, you have to have faith in your quarterback to make the right decision. And that's one thing that a lot of the national media seems to be starting to recognize and starting to talk about is Jalen Hurts makes smart decisions. I remember a couple years ago when we were hosting some shows over the season. I think it was the Brian Johnson season, the huge collapse season, and we were talking about how Jalen Hurts doesn't know how to throw the ball away. He just tries to continue to extend. Sometimes he just makes a wrong decision on who to throw to in a tight window. But now you see that he doesn't make those. Sometimes he does a tight window throw, but that's because he's got a lot of faith in Devontae Smith and AJ Brown to make those plays. But you see him go to his check down option a little bit more. You don't see him forcing plays. And that does not come from the offensive coordinator dictating what's happening. That's from Jalen Hurts improving that aspect of his game and realizing, okay, if I don't feel safe to extend the play with my legs, I got this guy as my check down option. Here's my first option. If I don't like it, here's my second option, check down option. He's got these ideas in his head in the moment based on the play call, but that decision making is not always, not often, in my opinion, set up by the play caller. That's often set up by the quarterback, and in his mind, what he is thinking of the play based on what he knows of the play. And I really think that Jalen Hurts has improved immensely in throwing the ball away in a bad situation, in deciding to tuck and run when he sees an optimal situation, in throwing to his check down when he sees the right time. And I think he's gotten light years better than that. Even like you see last year, this year, the year prior to that, the 2022-2023 season with Brian Johnson, where there was the collapse. You just have to have faith. Don't play scared. Have faith in your quarterback. And it feels like Petula's afraid to call plays that open up the offense. If Petula's calling the plays, is afraid to call the plays to open up the offense because he's afraid Jalen Hurts won't make the right decision. But I think Jalen Hurts has come light years in that way, and he is so much smarter than the Jalen Hurts. And he was already pretty smart and cerebral in the past too, but he is definitely better than he was 2 years ago. And I think you even see it in his game a bit even this year. He's still, especially in that second half against the Rams, he's still improving and continuing to get better with that aspect of his game.
One thing I think he does need to work on is just giving his receivers a chance, which he did in the second half. But there are times that he's gun shy. He'll double and he'll look like he's ready to throw it, but then might not be too satisfied with what the coverage is or whatnot, and then he doesn't let it go. And I think that he should do that. Just let it rip, and have faith in AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, that they'll if they can't catch it, they'll at least knock it down. They won't cause a turnover. So before we continue to talk about the good, I want to get one of the uglies. The kick returners. What the hell were John Mechie and Tank Bigsby doing? There's a reason why the Eagles brought in, claimed Xavier Gipson. He was good with the Jets at returning kicks and punts. Now he's probably not going to be the punt returner. He's had fumbling issues in terms of punts, but we need somebody that can catch the ball. There was like 5 or 6 muffed kickoffs, and the Eagles starting field position did not help the offense because of Mechie and Bigsby. And the Eagles traded for Bigsby just for that, and he was awful. Mechie wasn't good. So hopefully Gipson can help the Eagles in that respect if that's the reason why they brought him on. But yeah, what were your thoughts on that? Because I was frustrated beyond belief.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned that this Los Angeles Rams kicker has this like amazing knuckleball kick, and I get it. You might muff it the first time or the second time, but to continuously see, it was pretty much essentially every single return they were muffing it. I don't know if you needed to take a step back and make sure you were certain of the play and certain of where the ball was when you went up to it, but it just felt like they just were not confident going up to it. And I agree with you. You trade for Tank Bigsby exactly for that reason, to be a guy who's able to handle that. And I get it that maybe this is the first year where, like, last year kick returns were up, but this is really the first year where we're seeing them like back to their
they're over 75%.
Exactly. The pre-NFL killing it levels. Now we're back to those, getting very, very close to those levels again, where you're almost returning every single kickoff. So you know that some kickers are going to try some different things and they're going to do different things. If you need to take an extra step back, you're back there for a reason. You got some speed, you got some elusiveness. Take that step back, make sure you're ready to make that play and go and make the play. It definitely did not look. I mean, Mechie is not a predominant kick returner. I mean, Mechie so far is kind of disappointed in respects to what I thought we might see from him, but maybe that's why the Texans were so willing to move on from him. They did have a
Dotson was the same way. It took Dotson pretty much the whole year. So I didn't expect Mechie to come in here and he's the 4th receiver. Like, let's be real.
Absolutely.
He's not going to get much opportunity, and I know because of being an Alabama fan, in Alabama he did do returns a little bit, but like that might not be his game. This is probably them trying to give him an opportunity to get the ball into his hands to do something because he has that talent. But yeah, like
he's got great speed. He's got the elusiveness. That he's got the capabilities of doing that. You've seen flashes in the limited opportunities he got in Houston to show himself. And then Tank Bigsby, I think, will still be back there. But Xavier Gipson, like I put on our X feed, he ranked 19th in yards per kick return last year. He ranked 17th the year prior. So he's definitely, and that's with guys who had at least 10 kick returns. So that this is a guy who's got tons of speed. He's very elusive. He's a guy that he's not gonna do anything for you probably on the offensive side of the ball. He's probably never gonna see that part of the field. But he's a guy that hopefully you can put a lot of faith and get in that and get in you much better field position, because the field position was atrocious thanks to Mechie and Bigsby last week. But to your point on the punt return, we've only seen one punt return this year, and it was Jahan Dotson who did the punt return. But Gipson, like you said, over the past 2 seasons, on punt returns, he's had 5 muffed punts. So I don't see him as that. I see him as almost strictly a kick returner.
I also think the Mechie trade could have been a more of a future thing, because Dotson's a free agent after this year, and I think Mechie's a restricted free agent, but still, like, it's easier to bring back a restricted guy. So I think that the move for Mechie wasn't for this year; it was more for potentially next year. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, hopefully Gipson's is able to help in the kickoff return game. Being able to field the kickoff cleanly will be an upgrade. And, like you said, not every kicker like the Rams kicker has that knuckleball, screwball type of kick. They would have been better off letting it bounce in the landing zone and going into the end zone and just getting the ball at the 20, because they started at like the 10 or 15 yard line way too many times.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the most frustrating parts of the game. I was excruciating to watch him when I saw them claim Gibson. I'm like, eventually you have to hopefully find that answer in the kick return department, but at least we didn't trade this time, because the two that we have back there we traded for, and they're Mechie, like you said, they're probably just finding a way to put the ball in his hand, but Tank Bigsby's exclusively there for that purpose, essentially. So hopefully, Bigsby, whoever they put back there, which I'm kind of under the assumption it's going to be Gibson and Bigsby because they're the most experienced kick returners. I hope that they can figure it out and work together and become extremely effective kick returners, because improving on our field position would be massive for this offense. It's a game of inches. If you get 5 or 10 extra yards on your kick returns and you're more effective on your kick returns, it's going to be a huge help for Jalen Hurts in this offense.
I want to talk about the Eagles defense. They did a good job. Now, I know that the Rams put up 26 points, but they held the Rams to field goals on 3 possessions, that if they turned into touchdowns, the Eagles probably lose the game. And the fact that they were able to hold them to field goals, this was like the Green Bay game last year in week 1, where the Eagles turned the ball over the first couple possessions. The Eagles defense held them to field goals, and it was able to help the Eagles stay in it until the offense got rolling. Again, they gave up more rushing yards than we would have liked. They gave up 26 points, and one was on, they got the ball at the 10, 15 yard line. So that was more on the offense than it was on the defense. But they deserve a lot of credit for, the whole bend, but we hate the bend, but don't break. But that's what they did for the most part, only giving up field goals, and then 2 block field goals. It's very rare you see blocked. It is rare you see blocked field goals. We saw so many in the NFL on Sunday, and 2 in the fourth quarter for the Eagles, one by Jalen Carter, one by Jordan Davis. The one by Davis was to win it. It was just, when we got the first one, that was awesome. And then I just didn't think that it was going to be possible to get the second one. Like, we already got 1. What are the chances that we get 2 and this to win the game? And we did. It was just awesome to watch them. And Jordan Davis, this guy deserves a ton of credit. He worked his butt off all offseason. Peloton, lose all the weight. He chased Matt Stafford down on a 3rd down, which forced a punt. He got the block. I think he had a half a sack, maybe. I might be wrong. But he had a couple of tackles for loss, especially on a 4th down play for the Rams. But, Jordan Davis has been the Eagles' best defensive lineman through the first 3 games of the year. And that's better than Jalen Carter, better than Nolan Smith, better. He has been the best defensive lineman for the Eagles, and he deserves a ton of credit for the work he put in this offseason.
Yeah, well, I would argue he's been the best defensive player for the Eagles so far all season. You could probably make the case for maybe Zach Bond or Kenyon Mitchell. I'm sure there's other cases that can be made, but I'm sure that you're going to have a pretty fairly split vote if you took it to polls and asked who's been the best defensive player, especially because you generally feel it based on impact. Bonds had an interception. Jordan Davis, finally, by the way, he was given that as a full sack, so it wasn't a half sack, it was a full sack for him. So he had the full sack, he had the block, he had the return. We saw in week 1 when Jalen Carter got kicked out of that game early on, we saw he could have easily had 4 or 5 sacks if he could have just got Dak Prescott into his grasp, but he had a few missed sack opportunities there. Like, he could be having if he had capitalized on those opportunities, he could be one of the best defensive linemen in all of football right now. And I don't know if it would be a stretch to say he's one of the best interior defensive linemen right now in football because of how he's looking and the impact that he's having on games.
You know who deserves a ton of credit? Howie Roseman for giving him the 5th-year option. He doesn't give him the 5th-year option. The way Jordan Davis is playing right now, do you know what his contract would look like? Like, we're already going to have to pay Jalen Carter. And, we're going to have to pay Jordan Davis. At this point, remember, a lot of people were calling Jordan Davis a bust. A lot of people wanted them to take, or thought they should have took Kyle Hamilton over him. and look at that Baltimore defense. I'm not saying it's Hamilton's fault, obviously, but that defense is really bad. Maybe that these guys are in the positions or in the spots that they're supposed to be in the spots that they're supposed to be. And Jordan Davis is flourishing right now in this defense. And if he can keep this up throughout the entire year, he's pretty much he's playing double the snaps he played per game last year. You mentioned week 1, he played like 85, 86% of the snaps in that game. And that's not like, he didn't go into that game thinking, yeah, I'm going to play this many snaps. No, Jalen Carter got kicked out before the very first play. So he was forced into that, and he didn't allow that to affect him, and he hasn't allowed that to affect him this year. He's been playing really great football. And he even talked about, like, if it was last year, he wouldn't have scooped and scored. B, he wouldn't have been able to do an interview right after, like he did with Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network. So like he's just been really good. You mentioned it, one of the top 2 or 3 best players on the Eagles defense right now. Him, Ball, Q. Speaking of Q, he kind of was on Devontae Adams duty, and it was the first time in his career he spent, I think over 75% of the snaps on. He played every snap.
60% shadowing somebody.
Yeah, so he played every snap on the defensive side of the ball. It was Q, Cooper, Bond, and Reed, I think.
I thought Jalen Carter played 100% too.
I don't think he played 100%. Maybe he did. I thought he was a snap or 2 shy, but it does, like, he was out there. He shadowed Devontae Adams most of the time. Held him to 2 catches for 12 yards. Adams' touchdown was on Reed Blankenship, and it probably should have been an OPI, but a vet like that's never going to get that call. Puka Nacua is really good. Did Puka Nacua things. Q can't cover them both. That's all I'm going to say. Q can't cover them both. Adoree Jackson was out there until he got hurt, and then Jacorian Bennett. Now he's hurt this weekend, which we'll talk about later this week. Will be interesting without 2 of your top 4 cornerbacks, since Bennett and Jackson most likely won't play. So we'll see what the Eagles decide to do there. We'll hopefully have more answers on that by the time we meet with you next and we go over the Eagles Tampa game. But yeah, like, what are your other thoughts on the defense? I do love that Zach Bond and Jahad Campbell are pretty much like the same type of person, and you can interchange them. There were a lot of plays last year where Bond would be the one that was blitzing. Well, Campbell did a lot of blitzing, and like, you can just interchange them. You don't know which one's coming, and I love that pair, and they're going to be really good together. And as much as I like Nakobe Dean, it's going to be tough to get him back on the field unless, obviously injuries could change that. But with a healthy Zach Bond and a healthy Jahad Campbell, man, the Eagles might have the best linebacker tandem in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Jahad Campbell is definitely, he's played I think he played 91% of snaps this past game. I think the game before was nearly 100%. He's almost played every defensive snap. And for a rookie who came in with some major red flags about the injuries, and that's the reason that he dropped. He's definitely put in those concerns to rest. That doesn't mean that, he's totally exempt from, some injuries happening in the future, but at least the main issues that caused him to drop seem to be silenced for the time being, especially the fact that he's capable of playing over 90% of snaps in all 3 of his games, So, Jahad Campbell, like you said, Bond and Campbell are so impressive together. They move so quickly. They're so sticky in coverage, which is really impressive to see for linebackers. I know PFF grades indicated that, like John Mechie.
Oh, no. Don't ever bring up PFF grades again after that game. They are terrible. I know you like to bring them up. I always said I hated them. And the fact that Mechie and Pryor were 1 and 3 highest graded Eagles players, whoever did that, they deserve to be fired. But continue. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I get it. I know you don't like them, but I know that it says that Jahad Campbell is a top 3. We'll take the ones where they say good things. Jahad Campbell is ranked number 3 among linebackers for coverage, but you can tell he had a pass breakup in, I don't know if it was last week or week 1, that was really nice. They're not really thrown to the linebackers. I remember in past years where linebackers were just picked on constantly because our linebackers could not cover anything. And now it's becoming harder because it's hard to play the middle of the field and throw the ball in the middle of the field when you know Jihad Campbell or Zach Bond interchangeably are going to be there. And Zach Bond's got an interception. Jihad Campbell's got a nice pass breakup. You know that those guys can play the middle of the field and keep up with most tight ends. So that was impressive. The fact that Q is like unlocking a new element to his game of shadow. I think that he always could shadow. It's just Vic Fangio never felt a need necessarily to make him the shadow guy over 60% of the time or heading towards. I think he was on Devontae Adams 73% of snaps, but like he never saw the need to put him that closely to any wide receiver because he could play all over the field and cover any type of wide receiver. But now he kind of knows that he can lean into him when he needs him in a situation where he thinks somebody should be shadowed. And we know that we're going to come across some teams going through the rest of the season where there's definitely players who probably should be shadowed. I know that we think in week 1, CeeDee Lamb should have been shadowed more than he was, but he wasn't. But he did shadow George Pickens, and George Pickens wasn't really able to do much of anything. So we do see that he's like unlocking further elements to his game, which is really good to see because that's what you like to see in an all-around cornerback. And I mean, we cannot speak highly enough about how much of a home run Howie hit with Cooper DeJean and Kenyon Mitchell and deciding to double dip at the defensive back position in that draft and take Cooper DeJean when he was falling, and to have them both be out on the field and be two of your best defensive players and playing 100% of snaps week in and week out is such a crazy concept to me. Like the defense that he has built in the draft is so impressive.
Yeah, I was going to say, and we can go back a couple years back, Davis, Carter, Smith, Mitchell, DeJean, Makuba, and Campbell. That's 7 guys right now that are pretty much starters on your defense that were just drafted within the last 4 years. Like that is insane, an insane hit. And then, Mauro Jomo is also getting playing time. He was included in that Jalix hunt, getting his starter, just the amount of hits that he has on that. And then this week, we could potentially see Kaylee Ringo or Mac McWilliams play and see what they do. Also draft picks. Reed was an undrafted guy. So like just the amount of hits on the defensive side of the ball for Howie Roseman, he's just, it's insane his hit rate. Now he's obviously not perfect.
You don't. I mean, for me, like the amount of teams who put a bunch of money on one side of the ball, and then you can clearly tell how weak they are or inferior they are based on the lack of investment on another side of the ball, is very prominent around the NFL. So the fact that like, how often are you going to be able of Howie? Like, what happens when he starts to when it pivots the other way and he's paying all the defense and he has to start building his offense through the draft and being cheaper on that side of the ball? Is it going to look the same as what he was capable of doing with his defense? It's going to be really interesting because when you look at the offense, they do a great job in the trenches. Well, they rarely go to free agency for the trenches. They pretty much just nail those positions. And obviously, shout out to Jeff Stoutland. Stoutland U produces an amazing talent for the players that come in. But a lot of the rest of the players, I mean, Jalen Hurts was a draft pick, but like Saquon Barkley, free agent. AJ Brown was brought in through a trade. Devontae Smith was a draft pick. Dallas Goedert was a draft pick. But like 2 of the biggest pieces of our offense, if not the 2 biggest pieces of the offense outside of Jalen Hurts, where you had to go out there and you had to acquire and you had to give them huge money contracts. So it'll be really interesting to see when it flips the other way, because we know, like you said, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean's going to be due to get paid. Quinyon Mitchell's going to be due to get paid. Mauro Jomo eventually is going to get paid. Nolan Smith. There's so many guys eventually. Jalix Hunt, maybe even eventually. The way
Kobe Dean, maybe.
Yeah, the way the edge market's going too, like Jalix Hunt will, if he continues to excel in his game, same with Nolan Smith, those contracts go exponentially and like going up like a 90-degree angle on a hurricane or a 90-degree angle on a mountain. Like they go fast. So it'll be interesting to see. But shout out
I also
to what
think
he's capable of doing.
Howie's also anticipating that, by I think 2029 media rights deal, the salary cap will just explode through the roof. Like he'll obviously still. I mean, Lane Johnson will be gone. Saquon may be gone. AJ is still young enough; he might be here. You never know. We'll see. But like Dallas Goedert will be gone. But like he'll have guys that he can replace, but they also should have the flexibility because the salary cap should be ridiculously higher than we can even imagine right now. All right, so before we finish up, big news that hit the wire surprisingly today. The Houston Texans released former Eagle safety CJ Gardner-Johnson. Now, as we know, CJGJ has been with the Eagles twice. The Eagles have been to the Super Bowl twice, won one, lost one. So whenever he's an Eagle, the Eagles go to the Super Bowl. He's also played on 4 different teams in the last 4 years or something like that. 4 and 5, 5 and 5, whatever it is. So there are pros and cons to the potentially bringing him back, and we're not really sure if he can. There's a bunch of different things out there. People were saying he can't re-sign here because he hadn't played 4 games with the team that got traded. People are saying that doesn't really matter because he was released. I will let you start, and then I'll give my opinion on it. What are your thoughts on that? Would you bring him back? What do you think?
I don't think we can bring him back. I'm of the ilk based on what I'm seeing of people defending their position. Like the people who are being forced to defend their position are the accredited media members, the ones who are.
Well, let me ask you it this way.
Okay.
The rule's not there. You can if the Eagles are allowed to bring him back, would you bring him back?
No.
I don't care about the rule. Like, just say that rule doesn't exist, and he's a free agent. The Eagles can sign him if they want to sign him. Bring him back or no, and why?
No, I wouldn't bring him back, and the reason is the Eagles have a clear, like, we're very critical of him. The Eagles have an infatuation and a love for Reed Blankenship. He's gonna get an extension. He's gonna continue to remain one of our starting safeties, and to what will be we will continue to criticize him likely through his next contract that he gets with Philadelphia, because we don't think he is an all-around safety that's necessarily worth keeping. But obviously he has some pros to his game, but there's quite a few cons to his game as well. We've seen him be the guy. We saw him give up a huge touchdown this past weekend alone.
OPI. Just saying. I will give him credit. There was an OPI.
Agreed, but to the same point, like maybe there's a chance it doesn't get to the OPI if the proper coverage is there. Tough to say, but
he also shouldn't have been covering Adams.
The Eagles love Reed Blankenship. They're not going to move off of him. Andrew Makuba is clearly stepping up in a huge way. We talked about Jahad Campbell a lot, but Makuba is playing a much better game. Like, he completely left Sidney Brown in the dust with the safety 2 position. And like, you just see, like, what I saw went from the reporting from I can't remember his name now, something Wilson. He's one of the beat writers there for the Houston Texans. Basically, it was like he was already demanding a trade. He wanted to blitz more. He was criticizing his other secondary teammates. I mean, we're a young defense. If he brought the energy and didn't, leave waste everywhere as he went, I'd bring him. I would consider it, but I don't think that he would get the playing time he wants. I don't think he would be happy here. We were already considering moving on from him prior to the trade. Like, I think that if the trade didn't transpire with the Texans, we probably were going to let him go. We were going to end up cutting him. So I wouldn't bring him back. Those are just a multitude of reasons I see. I get we've been to the Super Bowl in those games, the energy that he brings, but I feel that there's a lot with this defense that we're not lacking the energy like we were. I don't feel a lack of energy post this Super Bowl, like post the last Super Bowl where we had to bring CJGJ back. I don't feel that energy is lacking on defense whatsoever this go around. So I wouldn't bring him back personally.
I would 1000% bring him back. I am a big CJGJ fan. I also think there's a big difference between the Eagles and the Texans. Look at the veteran leadership we have on this team. When he did that little where he called out, he said he hopes that they don't win. He retracted and he said, "I got brothers." He said Lane Johnson would set me straight. He respects Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Zach Bond, Jalen Hurts, like AJ Brown. They have the difference between the Eagles and Texans is the leadership. This team has leadership. Looking at the Texans team, who are the veteran leaders over there? They don't have anybody. Derek Stingley, like they don't have what the Eagles have here. And I think, and I'm not saying this is a long-term thing. I'm just saying for this year. The Eagles, if they want to still give Reed Blankenship a contract for some dumb reason, they can. I'm saying just get him for the rest of this year. Dory Jackson stinks. We know that. Jacorian Bennett, we really don't know. They don't. Keeler Ringo can't get on the field. If they wanted to say, and I'm not, and obviously I've already said that I want him on the inside because I like that Cooper DeJean be in the middle of the action. But if you had to move Cooper DeJean to the outside, you can put Makuba at the slot or even CJGJ at the slot. But say you put Makuba at the slot, but CJGJ at safety, boom, he's a starter. So I personally think that if they were to bring him back, he would get more playing time than you think. It'd be Q, DeJean, Reed, CJGJ, and Makuba as your secondary. Like, look at that secondary, and that's better than what they're and the secondary is playing pretty good now. But Dory Jackson's not better than any of the five guys I just named. Jacorian Bennett, not better than any of the five guys I just named. So I'm thinking about this year. I'm not thinking beyond this year. This would be a 1-year deal. And I think that CJGJ will have to realize that this isn't going to be a big time contract. This is going to be an incentive laden. It's not going to be a veteran minimum. He'll get some money, but it's going to be a contract. Look, you're coming in here to play. 2 years with the team, 2 Super Bowls he's been to. And he has respect for the veterans in this locker room. I don't think he would act out the way he acted out in Houston. Houston doesn't have any veterans, and I like D'Amico Ryans. He's a really good coach, but I think that the way that Sirianni controls the locker room, the way that Fangio controls this defense, the way that Howie Roseman controls the team, and Jeffrey Lurie, CJGJ would know that if he were to come back here, he's gonna have to straighten up, and I think he would for the year. Beyond this year, who knows what happens? But I'm talking about just strictly this year. I'm bringing him back. You put him on the field, and you go and play ball. He talk about a versatile secondary that we would have. He was a slot corner. Look, he's not the great. Like, he gave up some big plays, yeah, but he's also a ball hawk. And he took a couple of interceptions away from Q last year, but he's always around the football. So I want somebody that can do that. I know that they're going to give Reed an extension, and I'm not happy about that because I'm not a Reed fan. I don't think he's that good of a safety. I think he's a third safety at best. But you're talking about a secondary, Q, DeJean, CJGJ, Reed, and Makuba. That's better than any of the 5 combination that we've put out there the first 3 games of the year.
Yeah, that was the scenario that Brandon Gowton proposed, was like the only way they're going to make CJGJ fit and make him happy with his role is probably to have CJGJ be the nickel corner and you kick Cooper DeJean to the outside, and then you leave Makuba and Reed Blankenship up top as your safeties. That was the scenario he proposed as seeing the most optimal amount of time playing, where he also might get the opportunity to blitz because apparently he wanted to blitz more and have more of an impact in that game in Houston. How true that is, who knows? But I agree. To me, he reminds me of like to use to use people we criticize quite a bit, Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland. He reminds me of them because he plays the ball hawk game. He's boom or bust. He's going to either get that pick or he's going to give up a massive play. And we've seen it seen it in his time with us that he will make some big plays. He's had a huge impact, but he's also given up some massive plays. I remember Shane put together like a montage of them on his X, upon the trade being done. And there's a lot of times where he obviously looked, really bad in coverage. And I guess you just got to mask that with the capabilities of a guy like Andrew Makuba over top supporting him, or a guy like, well, probably not Reed over top, but Makuba over top supporting him, or Jihad Campbell and Zach Baum being in the box with him probably would help too. I
will also say this. The Texans are 0-3. It's very rare that CJGJ has lost. I mean, with the Eagles, he went to the Super Bowl twice. With the Lions, I know he got hurt, but they went to the NFC Championship game, if I'm not mistaken. He has been on winning team. With the Saints, they were playoff contenders. So I think that them being 0-3 and them not having any veteran leadership in that locker room, and maybe they thought that he could be that guy. Not everybody that's a vet is going to be a leader, and not everybody that's a vet needs to be a leader. Obviously, you would like it, but it doesn't fit everybody's role. And I'm not saying, like, CJGJ is not that type of guy. He more leads out on the field, I think. Like he likes to talk. He's a great talker. But I think if he were to be in a locker room, a team that's 3-0, a team he's familiar with, obviously he won a Super Bowl with, guys that he respects, it would be a totally different thing. That's me personally. Now, will it happen? We don't know.
And I think to add to your point about that, he didn't ask for this trade. He ended up just dealt, and he walked some of the comments back, but you can kind of tell by the comments right fresh off the trade that he definitely was caught off guard by this deal. And that's why I'm not surprised that he asked for a trade, because like you said, they're losing. This isn't a situation he likes. He's maybe not with guys that he respects and is used to playing with, and maybe he doesn't like the coaching style. So, like, people were shocked that he would have requested a trade. He didn't request the initial trade in the first place. He didn't want to be a Houston Texan in the first place. So,
what I thought was, when Saquon got the extension or the more money, he kind of probably went to Howie and was like, "Can I get more money?" And Howie's like, we can't fit it in. And he was like, all right, well, because he, on one of his streams, he did say, like, he knew he was going to get traded. He just wanted to go somewhere where he can win. And he was fine with Houston because obviously Houston won the division last year, been to the playoffs, went to the divisional round, and they thought that he could do that again this year. They're 0-3 now, and he kind of was like, sees what he get. He's got to be smart with it. If he really wants to be a winner, like, look at the options that you're going to have. Who knows? I mean, San Francisco might potentially be somebody that he could go to. I don't know if they would want him, but and again, we don't know if the Eagles really can do it. The rules are weird with him being traded. So we'll see what happens. See if the Eagles even have any interest in him. But I would do it in a heartbeat. I'm a big CJGJ fan. I would love him on the team. I love his attitude. I love his swagger. Like, we lost this. I'm not saying we lost swagger because we didn't. But, like, Darius Slay left. He left. I like just to have somebody that nobody's going to roll up. I mean, nobody's rolling up on this team now, but, like, he wouldn't allow it. That's ridiculous. You saw what he did with, was it Michael Tom? No, not Michael Tom. I forget, whoever he ripped the chain off somebody back when he was with New Orleans. Like, he's got that in him. He got that dog in him. We know what Sirianni likes, the Eagles motto from years back, hungry dogs run faster. He has that dog in him. So if they're able to and they want to.
I often wonder, like, from the week one situation with Jalen Carter, whenever you saw Jalen Carter, you saw Chauncey Gardner-Johnson close by. Would Chauncey Gardner-Johnson have allowed Jalen Carter to do something like that? Like, he feels like the guy that would step in and do that, because
maybe it would have been the roles. The roles might have been reversed. Gardner-Johnson might have been in Dak's face. But yeah, like, I don't know. We'll see what happens over the next week. We don't know with the rules and everything if it's even possible. But if it is possible, and I'm Howie, I'm making a call to him and be like, look, 1-year deal. We'll give you a little something incentive laden deal. Come, let's win another championship, and we'll figure it out from there. Because I think that he would get on the field. He's talent. He's a talented guy. Not always in the correct spot, but he's a ball hawk. He'll make plays, and you can never have enough of them. And you never know with injury. He's better than Sidney Brown. Injury situations could arise, and who knows? You want to have somebody that knows the defense and that has won here before, and he would be that guy for me.
Yep. I mean, like you said, we don't know the rules, and I'm sure that it's going to start to come to the surface of what the rules are and what it genuinely is. I'm on the flip side of that. Like I said already, if they were ready to let him move on, we don't know totally if it was because of the financials and the options that we're going to set in each September that we're going to pay him more money anyways. We don't know what was driving the want to get rid of CJGJ. But I mean, if you have that drive to move on from him, I get your logic of putting the best 5 DBs that you possibly can have, and that would be a superior, better 5 DBs than we're putting out there week in and week out right now. But I just don't. There's something in how it all went down that I just don't know if I would see Philadelphia even really picking up the phone unless a couple weeks passed and it doesn't look like he's going anywhere, maybe Howie might then pick up the phone. But I don't think he'd be the first one to pick up the phone and say, hey, Chauncey, what's up? You ready to come back to Philly and work out a deal? I just don't see that.
And they can cut Adoree Jackson and let him get his number 8 back. Just saying. All right, Eagles are 3-0 after their stunning come from behind victory over the Los Angeles Rams 33-26 on a Jordan Davis block field goal that he returned for a touchdown, going 61 yards. If you remember, they had a 61-yard field goal by Jake Elliott in 2017 when they won the Super Bowl. And wasn't Deshaun's punt return 61 yards? There's another 61-yarder that I can't. There was another. There was three
right. Might be right.
There were 3 61-yard plays, and this was the third one that resulted in Eagles victories. Thank you all for tuning in. We will be back later this week to get you set for the Eagles and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the battle of 2 3-0 teams in 150-degree heat in Tampa, Florida, 1 p.m. The Eagles are probably going to be wearing their green jerseys and probably going to die on the field because we always play Tampa in September in Tampa. We always wear green. They wear white because they have the option to wear white. And why would they go in dark jerseys when it's going to be 1,000 degrees outside? As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRaw54. And follow the Eagles Pinpull Network on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. And wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpull Network, be sure to subscribe, like, rate, and listen to all the shows, whether it be on YouTube live or on podcast form. We'll be back later this week to get you set for the Eagles and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.